you've actually reached a different universe of hi-fi. Yes, the multiverse does exist, especially on YouTube. As you can see today, this version of Harley Lovegrove has a beard. Whereas I believe that your version of Harley in his universe does not have a beard. In fact, he doesn't even have a beard on top of his head. I have two beards, this one and this one. But for every universe, a different story. However, one of the consistent things amongst both universes is the Sibelius loudspeaker. Notice I said Sibelius, not Sibelius, Sibelius, which is actually an actual composer. I think he just celebrated his 38th birthday in this universe. Unfortunately, I think he is no longer part of your universe, as per Harley Lovegrove. Now, I've been using the Sibelius loudspeakers for quite some time now, and you'll have to forgive my accent because in my universe, the Belgium accent has a little bit of Irish and a little bit of Australian in it, and occasionally perhaps maybe even some French Canadian. In other words, my accent is similar to what your universe would consider the minions from the DreamWorks pictures. Anyway, gibberish. The Sibelius loudspeaker, it's built like a musical instrument. Now, I've been listening to the Sibelius speakers for months, and this is my second time listening to the Sibelius speakers. The first time I had them in my room, let's say that my hi-fi chain was not exactly to the same tune or the same flavor as it is now. One of the characteristics that has changed since the first time I had the Sibelius loudspeaker is that the amount of tubes I have in the signal path are probably triple. Yes, I know. You can only worsen the audio by adding more components in the signal path. Yes, and I'm sure that that theory, generally speaking, is correct. However, there is such a thing as exceptions. The Sibelius loudspeaker, for one, in my opinion and in my experience, sounds much more lively in its potential if you use it with amplifiers that are, say, over 20 watts. Now, it's important that even if this amplifier is capable of going to 20 watts, that it is capable of producing quality watts, because you will not use the 20 watts of the amplifier. That's not the point. It's just generally speaking, an amplifier of 20 watts versus an amplifier of, say, 6 watts, like the Deckware 300B amplifier. Normally speaking, the 21 amplifier will have a little bit more of a consistency in terms of power output, usually because in order to get a little bit more wattage, you also have to have the transformers and the design to go with it. Now, this is generally speaking. Obviously, not every amplifier will sound as good as the next simply because of their watts. I think you all know this. You're all intelligent audiophiles. Whether you're in this universe or Harley's universe, you definitely understand this. So generally speaking, I found that the results were more pleasant with an amplifier that had at least 20 watts. That being said, there are always exceptions. There are always exceptions to the rule, and one of those exceptions was the Deckware 300B amplifier. Now, let me explain how I actually set it up and how I find it sounded better. Now, while using a 211 amplifier, which produces close to 20 watts of power, I was able to actually bring the Sibelius speakers much farther out into the room than you see them here right now. I was capable of actually bringing them out a good 6 feet into the room. Now, in meters for your universe, that is roughly 2 meters, not exactly right, and I'm sure that if I was in Harley's universe right now, he would probably have the exact number. Now, having them 6 feet into the room, or give or take 2 meters, with the 211 amplifier, I still had a gorgeous tonal balance. Mostly the low end was beautifully present, which stabilizes the highs and enhanced the mids. Now, going to a lower wattage amplifier like the Deckware 300B, it's important to understand that this amplifier, although it only gives out 6 watts, is actually producing quality watts from the very first to the very last. Not to mention, I probably never actually used all 6 of those watts. Never. I think I'm lucky if I used 2. And at 2 watts, I believe I was at about 88 to 90 decibels of in-room listening. For this type of environment anyway. So this is one of those potential exceptions. However, I did notice that if the speakers were out in 6 feet of the room, or 2 meters, the low-end performance was not quite as energetic as it is with the 211 amp, which is behind me that you cannot see right now. So I decided, and from experience, I knew that if I bring the speakers back near to the walls so that the room itself and the walls could help the speaker increase its lower frequency response or performance. Not response. I think the response is the same. I just think that the output might be different. And I'm sure if I'm wrong on this, Harley, please comment in the section below if you happen to see this video, as maybe you're probably getting fed up of watching videos of your gorgeous speakers being made on YouTube, which is quite possible. It's quite possible. But personally, if I would have made these beautiful works of art, I mean, come on, ladies and gentlemen, they are made of French oak. Okay, I digress. I shall come back to the performance. Now, I don't think that the low frequencies were actually, it was a better response. I think the response is the same. However, I think the output changes. I think you feel more of the energy of the lower frequencies when I brought them back closer to the walls, where they are right now, actually. I would say that they are 38 to 40 inches from the back wall to the driver. Probably 36 inches, 34 to 36 inches from the back of the speaker. Now, I could measure this, but unfortunately, it would require not just getting a measuring apparatus, but it would also require you all seeing me get up from my chair, which would probably reveal the fact that I am not as fit as Harley Lovegrove in your universe. Now, by bringing them back close to the wall. Now, okay, so I guess you all want to know if they are 36 inches. All right, let's give you guys the actual number. Okay, let me suck in my gut. I'll be back. Okay, almost there, almost there, almost there. Almost there, and of course, there is no bloody measuring tape anywhere. Damn it. All right. So I shall measure the old-fashioned way. This is the distance between the back of the speaker and the wall. Now I would expect it's probably roughly 32 to 36 inches. I could measure it later. As long as it's not a measurement of your manhood, it should be fine. So by having them farther inside the walls, actually that's quite the wrong way to actually describe it. It's not farther in the room would apply when they're 2 meters in. No, what I mean is that they are actually now 3 feet into the room only, which is roughly 1 meter, roughly. Not quite, but roughly. If you're obsessed with precision numbers, feel free to go do the conversion yourself. Now, using the 300B amplifier and having them where they are now, the bass response was much better, and now much more like they were with the 211 amp, which is closer to 20 watts when they were out into the room. So you see, it's always a game of balance. If you find that your low-level frequencies are not as present in your room, try moving the speakers around. Because now that I had the great tonal balance using a 6-watt amplifier, it's simply stunning. Stunning. The soundstage is wonderful, and I do have to say that they create a stereo image and soundstage that allows them to disappear just although they were bookshelf speakers. spectacular, absolutely spectacular. And this is the type of speaker, actually, that I would dare say is not meant for gearhead audiophiles. It's more meant for musical audiophiles, people who appreciate a sonata, people who appreciate those crescendos when you listen to a grand orchestra, people who appreciate the emotions that come out of a cello while the player is giving his all, one could say that he is in the zone while he plays his instrument. This is what the Sibelius is actually going to provide the listener. And the good news is that they do not have to be in a audiophile setup where they must be pulled and dragged out into the room, where you're probably your partner or better half of a potentially female nature might disapprove of. Well, the Sibelius takes this into account. Now, you have to understand that I think one of the reasons for this is that Harley voiced these speakers, the Harley from your universe, not this universe. This Harley hasn't done bloody fuck all with his life. But the Harley from your universe has actually voiced these speakers by ear. And not just any ears, but Harley's ears. I wish the Harley of this universe had ears the way the Harley from your universe, the real Harley, the one from Pearl Acoustics. Not this one, from the moronic hi-fi cave. Anyway, the emotions, the realism is nothing short of comfortably breathtaking. You will not be shocked. You will not be disturbed. You will feel comfortable and happy. This is special. The soundstage in my room is actually extending out a little bit beyond my walls. The depth is wonderful. Even with the speakers closer to the wall, you can still sense the depth of the room where the recording was made. It is farther back, and largely thanks to the lower frequency performance out of the speaker. Everyone, this is a full range driver, a little one at that. I mean, this one far more compares in terms of size to some people's manhood. It is roughly around 4 to 5 inches. Now, forgive me, there's a barking dog upstairs, and I probably know why. In this universe, there are a lot of Amazon deliveries, lots of Amazon. Yes, because in my universe, the Amazon jungle has actually developed into this massive company that delivers boxes. What's in the boxes, nobody knows, but they deliver boxes. So the Sibelius speakers, using this small driver, personally, I love the look of the more goldish bronze copper feel of the CG. But those who prefer the silver look, could you get the SG? I think that's what Harley meant by using an S for silver and C for copper. Because C doesn't work with gold or bronze. I don't know. So these speakers using 6 watts, I was still capable of getting the equivalent performance as I do with a higher wattage amplifier like the 211 Melody amp that I use in my system. That being said, you must place Sibelius where they are the happiest in the room. You must experiment, you must try. But that being said, ladies and gentlemen, if you are limited to only being able to have them up against your wall, you will have a fantastic experience, And for some reason, I almost feel as though right now my character has blended Harley's to Marco Pierre White, the famous French chef. I don't know why. I'm feeling like it's shifting to Marco's side a little bit. I'm sorry, Harley. I don't mean to say that you are like Marco and that your accent resembles Marco. It's more that I am a mess. Now, using Pearl Sibelius with the stands, and I have to say, the stands are quite simplistic, but they do their job well, very well. I personally prefer them on their stands. My floor is a concrete floor. If I were to put these speakers directly on the floor, it actually hurts the lower frequencies. I'm not a fan. I find the speaker actually sounds a little bit more tilted in the highs without the stands. And if I put it on the carpet, strangely, it actually sounds a little bit more muffled. Interesting. If I put the speakers directly on the concrete without stands, they sound a tad brittle or a bit thin. Putting them directly on the carpet in my room makes them sound a little bit muffled. Opposite effect. So I use the stands, absolutely use the stands. And I like the fact that the stands are simple, actually, in being able to bring the speakers on and off. And for those who are wondering how you can pick up these speakers, as there are no obvious handles, it is just beautiful French oak. French oak, top to bottom. This is not a veneer. This is made like a gorgeous acoustic guitar, stand-up bass, cello, beautiful wood craftsmanship. So this is a Taylor with a Koa top, and actually I was in the process of changing these strings on these. Yes, it's missing a string. So the woodworking of a guitar such as this, I mean, simply gorgeous. Like, I look at the Sibelius speaker and it just reminds me of looking at a guitar that is gorgeously crafted, such as this Taylor. It's on, to me, it's on the same level of beauty and artistic presence in a room when you have these. I mean, if you're not a fan of wood, you're not a fan of wood, but if you are, these are the kinds of speakers and work that you can be proud of when people will walk into your room. They will have a presence. I know it does in my room. People come in, and when they see the Sibelius loudspeaker, they are far more, a smile comes to their face more so than looking at my own DIY speakers. Rightfully so. I mean, and your choice of stain too on the website. I mean, just get the stain that you like. But yeah, Harley and your team, really, this is special. Congratulations. This is very, very good. And if you guys put the same amount of care, attention, and passion and love in your new upcoming amplifier as you have with the Sibelius speakers, it's going to be a very exciting time for music lovers to dig into the Pearl Acoustics product line. To pick them up, have a look. I simply use the vented port at the bottom. It is solid, and you are able to use your hand through the vented port with a hand in the back of the speaker, as you're seeing now on screen, for a very simple method of moving these speakers around. As these speakers are not necessarily the heaviest of speakers, I would guess that they are between 30 and maybe 35 kilograms, maybe. We could go check the website. Let's go check the website, shall we? There you are. Now, music genres. Music genres, I've experienced most of them, and I have to say that it does a great job at conveying the emotions and the energy of almost any music genre. As a matter of fact, I've even tried metal and heavy rock. And when going into these two genres, this is where potentially an external subwoofer actually might help fill in the slight gap that many would feel is missing. Now, that's pretty much all I'm going to say about this type of music genre, because in my experience, and thus now in my opinion, people who primarily listen to metal and heavy metal music, or grunge, or very hard rock, these are not the kind of speakers they're looking at. They are not. And one would even wager that, to a degree, do these types of audiophiles, do they appreciate the subtleties of a soundstage the same way a jazz fanatic would? It's a question, I wonder. Most metalheads will actually want that energy in the mid-range, in the bass, and they want those crisp, sharp, or intense highs. Because should you ever see Metallica in concert, trust me, there's nothing rolled off about it. It's there, it's intense, and for some people, that is how it acts. Now, they're probably going to be better suited with speakers that are probably larger three-way designs, woofers that push a gargantuan amount of energy and intensity, and the little subtleties and nuances take a back seat. But the Sibelius, for those who appreciate classical, jazz, blues, and I have to say, old school country, and even rock and roll sound beautiful. Just beautiful. Yes, speaking about subwoofers. Now, I can't say that I use subwoofers. Mine are open baffle bass compensation drivers. I guess you could call them subwoofers. They have two voice coils in them. And I drive both of them with a Class D amplifier. And with the Sibelius loudspeaker, I was actually surprised that compared to my reference setup, where I have these bass drivers playing between 30 hertz and 90 hertz, in this case, they were actually better off matched with the Sibelius from 30 hertz to 60 hertz in my room. That goes to show the extension of the low end that the Sibelius is capable of producing. For a full range driver, the speed, the separation, the detail, the resolution is quite beautiful, considering it is playing the whole range of frequencies. Sure, people would like to say that a full range tower should go to 20 hertz. Well, if that's what you believe, feel free to go get towers that tell you they play up to 20, down to 20 hertz. In my experience, a tower speaker that performs down to 20 hertz and maintains its composure across the frequency range is usually quite expensive. So much so that the Sibelius actually look like a little fast food trio cost in comparison. Because in order to reproduce 20 hertz in the room and maintain the degree of quality in terms of mid bands and upper frequency that the drivers would have to maintain, while that level of vibration and energy is being produced in the same cabinet, requires serious cost and craftsmanship. In return, this is not what the Sibelius is after, because let's be honest, under 40 hertz, generally music instruments don't even go there. So I think what was Harley's goal was to make instruments sound like instruments. Now, every designer has their perception of what instruments sound like. Some designers will actually claim that they've been drummers for so long and they've heard trumpets behind them and they know what trumpets should sound like. But then you have people like Harley who actually spend most of their lives in audio engineering studios and these gorgeous recording halls, recording classical instruments. So I'm pretty sure Harley's perspective of what an instrument sounds like probably varies from, say, the designer who used to be a drummer. Now, I can't say enough, this speaker is built to the highest standards, both in terms of sonic luxury and quality, but also in wood making craftsmanship. French oak is simply beautiful. Now, I'm not sure what stain was picked for these speakers, but they definitely look like probably the medium oak, I would say, although I could be wrong. Simply stunning, ladies and gentlemen, beautiful. And now it leads me actually to the point where I believe what makes these speakers actually magical. You have to forgive the lighting. The lighting has a tendency to flicker. One of the magic touches, and this is similar to what I experience with my speakers, my own DIY open baffle full range speakers. People come and listen in my room and listen to these speakers, and these are speakers that cost me maybe $1,000 to build. Now, why are they capable of reproducing such good quality music? One of the reasons is obviously the quality of the driver matters. Yes, of course, this is a great quality driver. As the driver I'm using is of great quality as well. They are both different, meaning this quality is much less of a beaming characteristic as the drivers that I use. Meaning the drivers that I use will give the listener in the sweet spot an absolute euphoric experience. But however, the people that are not in the sweet spot, the experience degrades rather rapidly. However, with this driver, the experience is rather maintained for a much wider space. So you're going to have 2 or 3 people sitting side by side with these speakers and still get very much the similar experience. Now, the other characteristic that is quite magical here is usually every speaker has a little demon inside, a very small demon composed of multiple components. This is what I refer to as the sonic demon. Most of the people in the industry call it a crossover. Now, I can understand why this demon is necessary in many cases, because you might have multiple drivers that you need to tune together to a more coherent response, a more flat frequency response. But when you're dealing with a single driver capable of doing all the work, you can eliminate most of the time any components between it, the driver, and the amplifier, and thus opening up a whole dimension of emotions and sonic energy that will be felt not just by your ears, but by your brain, by your heart, even your gut. Some of your memories, the nostalgia, will be pulled even more by speakers that are not using crossovers and are matched with the right amplifier. I think this is one of the greatest decisions that Harley decided to go for, is to go with the full range driver without a crossover. And thus, it is in a setup of this nature where, should you decide to go down the snake oil route of cables, speaker cables, you'll be surprised at how audible the differences can be from a pure silver cable to an oxygen-free copper cable, or a mix of the two. Often, the crossover negates lots and lots of the sonic changes that not just cabling, but the gear, or even the impact of using good quality power. Here, I'm happy to say that the Sibelius loudspeakers will and forever earn a Hall of Fame status here in the Hi-Fi Cave, in this universe. Because frankly, I'm in love with these speakers. So let's start over, shall we? Now, the Sibelius loudspeakers are fantastic at doing all sorts. Oh, Jesus. Oh, the other thing about Harley's universe is he clearly